to this edition of Banter on the Fuel Injection Podcast. It's been a little while since we've done one of these, but we're back today with 3/4 of the crew. Hopefully Cody will pop in pretty soon. And, today we got no agenda at all today. We're just kind of talking. So we're really going back to the true definition of idle banter. So hope you all enjoy this. We'll see how it goes. So I think, Damon, you were saying something about...
I was saying something about golf, and then Doug made a non-YouTube friendly joke. So
I'm gonna just say that
it could have been a YouTube friendly joke. Because I didn't actually reference any. So.
Yeah, you can actually say.
I guess it's YouTube friendly.
That piece of literature, yeah. Yeah.
That's high praise.
Just trying to keep it as PG as possible here.
We tried to go and see the golf today actually, but paint shop's shut on Sundays, even though they said to come round on Sunday. So that was a wasted trip. But
and on that bombshell,
we went to a BMW. We went to a guy who buys and sells BMW instead. He had an M5 there. And he had an X7, and I never realised how big the X7s were until I saw one in person up close.
Isn't that real hideous though? It's like it's jaws and it wants to eat you. It's
huge. The grill is about. I did a little measure. The grill is almost as tall as the front end of the BMW 4 Series. Full stop.
Yeah.
It's
like 3 feet tall. Yeah, it's massive.
It's a massive car. There was a Range Rover Sport behind it, and it looked small.
Yeah.
Small.
Everything, even a normal Range Rover would seem small compared to that X7. That thing was just
the front of that X7 looks like it should do what Kirby does and just suck everything in.
The front of that X7 is a vacuum cleaner. We should nickname it Dyson.
Yes. Or the whole range of BMW should just be renamed the Dyson range. Especially the electric ones. That'd be good.
Yeah, there we go.
I still say that
I think Dyson i8. Go ahead, Doug.
I was next to a Suburban new one. It was probably a 2020, possibly a 2021. And of course the Escalades are based off of the Suburban platform. And I still say those are huge. I was walking around that thing and it was taller than I am, and it was a journey to walk around it. You're like, oh my gosh, people.
Get winded walking through
the hood of it's up here, and you're like, oh, if it hits you, it's just, that's it. You're over that.
Yeah.
They don't exist in England, because if they did, they'd run over it. That's the whole of England in one go.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
Down half your streets.
Because what are they about the? Because there was a Hummer H2 on my road in my old house. It was huge.
Yeah.
It took up 1.5 parking spaces.
Well, I think it's actually longer than an H2 by a bit.
Oh.
That's one of the things I've been around several of them already, and it still just amazes me how long those things really are. And you get to walking around it, and you think, this is a walk, man. I'm getting my exercise in,
Yeah.
And they are.
Walk.
When they go into a pull-in parking space, the rear end of them things are hanging out. I mean, they are huge. And it just mind boggles me at times when I am that close to one. I remember how big they really are. You think there can't be much bigger on the road right now. Just can't be.
Honestly, it's comparable to a tank is what that thing is.
Well, I go back to, I don't know if you guys remember the Ford Excursions back then.
Oh Lord, those things are massive.
I'm gonna have to do that.
It was paint it yellow and watch the children run out to it. It was because it was the size of a school bus. It really was. And when you see these new Suburbans and Escalades, that's what I always, and everybody made fun of the Excursion for how big it was. But no one seems to care about these new Escalades and Suburbans, and to me, they're just as big as the old Excursions were.
That's true, yeah.
I don't know why when you said Excursion, I was thinking of the Ford, I think, Econoline van.
Mm-mm,
some
no,
reason
the
that's.
Excursion-
I know. I've
that thing
googled
was a
it now. It's a
whole
massive
different
pickup truck,
level.
like an F-250 size thing.
Yeah, the Excursion
Yeah.
was they took the Expedition, which was the big SUV, and made it bigger. It was just
Just
And made it
more.
longer, yeah.
Yeah.
Made it
Yeah.
like one of those F-250 pickup trucks with like one of those cab boxes on it. You know, one of those.
Oh, the camper cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
those.
basically
That's what it was.
biggie-side Excursion or an Expedition. Sorry. It's just
They basically took one of those vans and took a F-250 and then put them together. Yeah, that thing's massive.
Yeah.
I mean, the Expedition was plenty big enough, and then they come out with that, and that's why the Excursion went away, was because of how big it was. Everybody made fun of it and was talking about how horrible it was because of how big it was. It was hard to get around in cities and towns, and it just kind of got ridiculed into non-existence. And then now we got the Suburban and the Expedition, which, like I said, it's really the same thing, but somehow it's accepted. I don't get that.
Yeah.
It's because the rest of the cars have got bigger, I think.
Mhm.
Like back then, they were probably massive compared to your average sized car, but now they're still massive, but not not as far off as the biggest SUVs, the biggest normal SUVs.
Well, that's it.
Compared to
And cars are getting bigger. They are. We're going back to big cars again.
Well, not back for Europe. It's just now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here in America,
the
a revolution, because the 60s, the 70s was all big cars. Then you get to the 80s, then you went to the mid-size. The 90s, cars got small, and then now we're back to these big cars. We're just going in a circle, basically.
I mean, I saw a picture. I think the new Fiesta is bigger than I think the original three-door Cosworth Sierras. And the Sierra is what's supposed to be a Mondeo-sized car.
Yeah. Well, what the 2 Series BMW is actually is supposed to be the small BMW, but in all reality, it's the same size as the M3 back in the 80s and stuff. It's actually just a touch bigger. And then the 3 Series is almost the size of a 5 Series from back in the 80s.
That's why they come. That's why they come out with new cars. Mercedes only made the S class, then the E class. When that came out, that was their little car, and then that got big. So then they made the C class, and then that got big. So then they made the A class.
And they all
the A class is gonna get big, and then they're gonna make the like.
How are you gonna get half a letter? At least BMW can do a BMW half series. I don't know what Mercedes is gonna do.
Half series.
Oh, didn't Mercedes start making Smart about the same time they started making the A class?
Yeah. Well, Mercedes is going to have to start doing their lettering of their cars like the grades back in school. You got the C-, the C, and the C+. Yes. And you got the E, the E-, and the E+.
I think you have the S minus, the S, and S plus.
Well, I mean, that's what they're going to have to do. I mean,
and then I think the only way to get something smaller than the A class is to have the A- class.
A-. Oh, that's hilarious. The cars are getting bigger. Remember how little the Civic was, and now look at it. It's almost a mid-size.
It is. Even the hatchback. I was looking at those online a few days ago, and I was like, geez, these things. And I mean, I see them when I go out driving too, and I look at them like, man, that thing is big compared to even just a decade ago. It was maybe 3/4 of the size it is now. It's like almost as big as the Honda Accord was about 20 or 25 years ago.
I wouldn't even say 25, or at least the European Accord, back when they did those. That's 10, 11 years ago. I'd say it's not much smaller than the European Accord from 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think in the US it might have been bigger, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I think the biggest one that shocked me was when I saw the new Vauxhall Corsa in front of a Mark V Golf, and it was the same size.
Mm-hmm. Trucks are no different. if you look, of course, I'm always going to use the Tacoma because anyway, you take the second gen Tacoma, it's the same size as the full size Silverados and F-150s from the 80s and early 90s. Because I've parked next to many of them, and you stand in the front, and you're looking window to window, roof line to roof line, the width, everything's the same. And the Tacoma used to be a tiny little pickup truck that was made to compete against the Chevy Love and the Ford. It wasn't a Ranger back then. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, the tiny little trucks of the day, they were the compact trucks. And now that compact truck market is the same size as the full-size trucks from almost 30 years ago. And now you jump into the even newer, like my dad's 2021 Tacoma. That thing's huge. But then you jump into a brand new Silverado or F-150 or Dodge Ram. These things are ginormous now.
Yeah. Those things are like scale mountains.
Yeah. And it's like, how much bigger is things going to get? I mean, it's getting almost out of hand, you know?
Yeah. Sorry, James.
Sorry, you go first.
Okay, so last night my dad and I were going to pick up some food, and on the way home we stopped at a stoplight, and we saw in the lane next to us, there was the latest gen Chevy Silverado, which had been lifted, and I was like, that thing is the same size as like the Himalaya mountains. That thing's massive.
Yeah.
I could hike that. I'd have to train to get into that thing. Like, you could just like easily just hop in. It's just like, no, you gotta get a step ladder and you gotta do a Hammond.
There is a problem with trucks like that. I saw a truck that only had the front lifted. I can't remember what they call it. Some specific name when the front lift and the rear is low. One of those came to a stoplight and could not see the Porsche Cayman in front of it and went straight into it because you straight up couldn't see it.
No!
It's on Reddit somewhere.
Oh, that's funny. That's too funny. Well, you know, it's like going back to the Escalades and the Suburbans. When you're going down the road and they're based off of these new trucks, I mean, within the last 2 to 3 years, when they go by, you think, is that a Winnebago? Oh, no, it's just a Suburban. It's fine. I'm getting passed by a single wide trailer. I just, you know.
I'm getting passed by a mobile home.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's probably a car now that you could probably fold the seats down and get an original Mini in the back.
Probably. It's called an Escalade. I'm telling you.
It is called an Escalade.
Cadillac, if you do want us to test that theory out, please do drop us a line.
Yeah.
Used to be you towed your car behind your SUV so that way when you got to the spot you're going, you had a smaller car to ride around it. Now you just park it in the back.
Yeah.
And still get your 7 children
in
your little tow ramps. You pull your little Mini into the trunk, and then you got still enough space for your good kids, you, your wife, and all of your belongings.
Yeah.
Including your Mini.
How are they planning to trailer these massive SUVs when they do break down? What's gonna carry them?
Really big tow trucks.
The Murados.
They're gonna need tugboats. They're gonna have to run along rivers to have tugboats towing them down.
No. One of those shipping boats. You know, those huge like container boats.
Yeah.
One of those.
You can only fit 3 of them on there.
Well, no, I figure what it's going to come down to is eventually they're going to get to the size of what they're going to do is have a Chinook helicopter come in and hover while they strap it underneath of the car like they do in the military and then just lift it off and fly it.
Like they would do with Humvee.
I think the helicopter may actually crash because of the weight of the Escalade.
Yeah.
It's going to need one of the Thunderbirds planes with like the thrust vectoring straight down. Lift it down bigger.
Harrier jump jet to come get your Escalade.
Talking about big SUVs, it's not just American SUVs though. The Nissan Armada and the Infiniti QX80, and I
Yep.
think there's the Toyota Land Cruiser before it was discontinued in the US. Those all the Lexus LX 570. Those are all huge as well. Not as big as the Escalade and the Explorer and all that, but they're still pretty big. If you stop like me in my mom's Audi, little like mid-sized sedan, I stopped at a stoplight next to it, and I'm like, geez, since when did a Lexus get to be the size of an Escalade?
Well, that's it. And it's like, I would be terrified, these people who run around in these smart cars. And it's like, you're in something the size of an egg, and you're out here with this kind of stuff. Heck no.
It is cat and
in the
mouse.
city I live in, people drive like mad people.
It is
I
literally just cat and mouse.
A small car was taking a left into a shopping center, and there was a Subaru Outback coming out of the same shopping center, about to make a left onto the street I was on, but going the other way. And he was parking lot. Okay, Subaru's coming out like this, about to go out like that. Smart car's coming in like this. They did one of these numbers and almost hit each other. I'm like, okay, the Subaru Outback is not that big of a vehicle, but next to a smart car, that Subaru will decimate that smart car. It will crush it.
And the thing of it is that's another prime example right there. Does anybody else other than me remember when the Subaru Outback used to be a mid-sized station wagon?
I do.
And now it's a full-blown SUV.
I do.
And actually, the Subaru was the Outback was based off. Well, now I could get some hate, but the Outback was no bigger than the Brat. The Brat was just the SUV part cut out, made into a truck.
That's
and
true.
Those were no bigger than. Well, they were small actually, and now the Outback has grown into this full-blown SUV.
Yeah, if you look at the 2021 Outback, or the 2022 even, it's like, it's got about an 8-inch lift off the ground. It's long too. It's like probably 19-ish feet long, yeah.
Probably, every bit of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another prime example of cars are just getting bigger. We're not getting smaller, we're getting bigger.
The problem is, I think, okay, let's imagine you're a parent driving around a town, and it's the 80s. Everyone's in small cars, reasonably small cars. I'm talking from Europe's standpoint here.
Mm-hmm.
Then someone comes and gets a Range Rover and starts delivering their kids in a Range Rover. And you think, if I'm hit by that, me and my kids are dead, and they're going to walk away scratch-free.
Mm-hmm.
So you go out and buy, some 90s SUV that's popular. You go buy Land Rover Discovery. I can't think of anything other than Land Rovers at the moment. So, and then the other parents look at it, and then another company, like Honda, they say, a lot of people are buying these, let's make the CR-V. And now you have a car which is as big as a Range Rover, but as efficient as a small car. And that's where it stems from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, well, I got to say this just because, we always, as Americans, always got made fun of because our cars were so big. Well, now it seems like the rest of the world is taking a note from us and enlarging all their cars. And I mean, Germany's doing it, Japan's doing it. Everybody is jumping onto this. Let's make cars bigger.
I've seen new Minis.
Well, there's another prime example. Look at the Mini. My goodness, man, that thing.
Even the first new BMW ones weren't too big, but at this point they're huge things. When you got the Countryman and stuff, which is crazy.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. Cars are just going to be huge. And another prime example is look at Jeep Wrangler. The little Jeep Wrangler, when it was it was the Willys, was a small little Jeep. And now there's Jeeps out here that would run over most family cars just completely.
Especially if they have a lift kit on them. It's like, forget about it.
Well, that's it. Like my neighbor, he's got a different one now, but he bought a brand new one. And the first thing he done was start lifting it and widening it. He made it wider and taller. Yeah. And it was
what he done is put those big fat tires on it that actually stick out from the body panels.
Well, and then he put the spacers on it to push them out even further.
Oh.
And then he put like a 4 or 6 inch lift kit on it to lift it. And it's like, oh my gosh, what? But he does off-road his. I will give him credit there. He is not afraid. He's not afraid to take that thing anywhere.
I think you got to nickname it Dennis the Menace.
Yeah, he's got his one out there now. He's done all this too. He's lifted it, put the bigger tires on it, widened it, and then his little, I think it's a Honda or a Nissan. He's got sitting out here, a little old car from, oh my gosh, I think it's the late '90s, sitting out here, and it is just hilarious looking because it's like, dude, if you aren't paying attention when you're backing up, you're just going to drive right over top of that thing.
You're just gonna run over your old little Nissan, yeah.
You probably won't even know it. That's the bad part.
Yeah. Like, oh, what was that little bang? What was that?
Yeah.
Oh, whoops, I just crashed my 280 CX. Whoops.
Yeah, because it just looks like a wheel chuck parked next to it.
It's like a wheelie bin parked next to a monster truck.
Basically. Oh, yeah, I don't know. I think cars getting bigger is good in a way. I just wonder where the limits are. I mean, are we going to reach the limits of like early 70s, late 60s Imperials, or are we going to go back to, what I have noticed though, these cars are getting bigger, but the trunks are still getting smaller.
Yes. If you
It's the interior space. It's the safety equipment. So the outside of cars get bigger, and the interior is still quite tight for you. I was in the Q7 again, and it feels it doesn't feel that big inside from inside. The outside it's huge, it's a massive tank of a thing, but the interior didn't feel that big. And also because cars are very refined now, so you can't tell, you can't hear stuff. Suspension. I guess the refinement is a part of it as well because they have to fit all the padding and stuff.
Well, that's a lot of it too. The sound deadening and everything just packs in. And let's face it, the electrics in these cars are so much more. Yeah, so you have wires.
You got wires all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, and they used to talk about the cars of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Well, for the most part, even the 80s. Being so heavy. They were big, heavy cars. That's why their fuel mileage was abysmal. But cars are heavier now than they've ever been. It's not uncommon to see a 4,000-pound car. It's kind of the new normal now.
I was actually test driving Lexus IS last weekend, and I found out that when I was done test driving it, I looked in the in the door, the little door jamb where they have the weight of the vehicle, and I saw that little Lexus was like 3,500 pounds. I'm like, what? Since when did Lexus tiny, like not tiny, but small compared to all the other ones, small sedan get so heavy?
Well, it's like the Challengers. They're 4,500 pounds.
Yeah.
That's a muscle car. It's like, what in the world? How? Dodge, how did you possibly make a car that's supposed to be a sports car 4,500 pounds?
Based on the car it's based on is probably
to do a quarter mile in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, not with 4,500 pounds of weight. Jesus.
You need 700 horsepower just to move the thing.
I know, right?
Just to get it to drive out of the driveway.
Yeah.
Well, that's like my dad when he bought his new Tacoma. I was looking stuff up. It's over 1,000 pounds heavier. If you take same model, same everything, from the second gen to the third gen's over, I think it's like 1,200 pounds heavier. And they only added 10 horsepower and said, that'll do.
Oh, that was a big issue with it.
What?
Yeah.
That was a big issue with the Civic Type R, in between the EP3 and the FM2. They added, I think, 100 kilos, and they added 1 horsepower.
Yeah.
One. That's all you need.
So now it's like 330 horsepower instead of 329.
The chassis was good,
like
so it's still good. And in fact, I think that's a performance car bargain at the moment, because you can have those FM2s for $2.5-3 grand.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Hey, Cody.
Hey, Cody.
Okay.
How's
I
it going?
suck like hell. I'm so sorry.
That's fine. You're good.
It's
We were
alright.
just kind of, well,
Talking about cars.
trying to keep this kid funny, but we were just kind of taking around a little bit.
Well, that's out the window now, isn't it?
I guess so.
We were keeping up the normal, just random conversation.
And then
Although
saying
I will
some
say we've
slightly
done-
offensive things like 50 Shades of Grey.
That was before
Now,
we
see,
started
you
filming.
actually brought that up. I just said you had 50 shades to choose from. So, yeah, well, actually, I gotta admit, we've done pretty good so far. We have
Haven't
stuck
made it
cars
to
getting bigger and heavier.
demonetized, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Your
we
iPad
have stuck to
will-
one subject pretty good.
Yeah.
We have, which is not usual for us.
No,
Mhm.
it's amazing.
I know.
Yeah,
I think we might be
Stick to
broken.
one subject for 25 minutes? Holy cow, what?
And now, cows.
Cows.
Yeah, exactly.
And now, how iPhones are a lot less user-friendly, ...
Than they
Yeah,
were.
right.
Which is a true fact.
Apple.
Maybe
Steve
we are
Jobs.
making it.
They have USB-C support. Why don't you just add USB-C?
Bringing it back to cars a little bit, you know how Steve Jobs used to have that
Android King.
Mercedes CL, I think it was a CL,
I think it was an SL.
maybe an SL. It
Yeah.
was some kind of Mercedes coupe though, and he every 6 months he would get a new one because he didn't want to actually get a proper license plate and like have the government knowing that he had bought the car. So he would get it on the temporary plates for 6 months, and then buy a new one every 6 months.
That's just expensive. That's
I
hard.
mean,
It's Steve Jobs.
He
It's
was a
not expensive
multi-millionaire
for him.
though, but still, yeah, I see where you're coming from.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably 100K annually
That's
spending
probably
on.
why CLs are so cheap now. He bought all of them.
Yeah.
Just flooded the
Help them
market.
depreciate.
Well, you also got to remember he's probably writing them off too. They're
Yeah,
probably deemed his company car, therefore it's a complete tax write-off.
that's
So
true.
you think, yeah, it's a $100,000 car, but what's he really paying for it?
Yeah.
Fair point.
maybe 50, 75.
Yeah. By the time he gets all of his tax rebates and stuff from it and write-offs, it's probably short.
It's
enough.
gas money.
Yeah.
Petrol
mean-
money.
It's petrol money for him. Yeah, you know,
Well,
20K in petrol. You know, casual.
Well,
I
that's
could
what
imagine.
a 6-litre Mercedes would cost in petrol every 10 minutes.
I could
every
imagine.
10 seconds. Yeah, whoops.
Yeah.
So it's another 20K. Whoops.
I could
Still,
imagine he probably had to also do it just for tax reasons, because I had a friend who was a millionaire several times over, and money to him was no big deal. You know, Christmas one year, he bought everybody in the family brand new snowmobiles, 4-wheelers, the whole bit. I mean, everybody got snowmobile and 4-wheeler. It wasn't everybody.
Dang.
And so, you know, and what happened was every year his accountant would come to him and say, you have to spend this much money or you'll lose it in taxes. So he would go out and just blow all that money so he didn't have to pay taxes on it, because it was cheaper for him to blow the money than pay the taxes. So you got to imagine Steve Jobs being worth way more than my friend was probably in the same boat as, I'll just buy one every 6 months and I don't have to pay taxes on the money, you know?
Exactly. You know that's a good point. Yeah.
You know, that's
Well,
what a
I
lot
do-
of
I
people.
Uh,
How nice must that be, though, just to be able to go, yeah.
and
you
people
know,
wonder
I actually
why.
have to spend money in order to save money.
Yeah. And people wonder why America's public transport industry is not brilliant. ...
Yeah.
Right.
Talking about public transportation, though, I have a gripe with it, and maybe this is only in the city I live in.
Just one.
Just what?
Well,
I could do the whole
I have-
podcast on it.
Slow.
Well, the biggest one I have is the fact so bus drivers, you know how usually when they pull over to pick people up and drop people off, there's a little designated place for them to pull over. Well, some geniuses decide to not pull over, and they kind of just go at a diagonal angle like this,
Mhm.
and then the back of the bus ends up blocking the lane where people are trying to drive by, and because it's only a one-lane street, and the bus is blocking too much of the lane for you to be able to get by, you're stuck there waiting for the bus, and you can't go
Oh.
by.
London
Yeah.
pretty much turned that into a government mandate by putting the bus lanes in the lane where the
Oh,
cars are
for
driving.
Christ's sake.
They don't make the cutout anymore. They just put
Well,
it in the lane.
So bus drivers just
So the
stop
bus
in
just
the middle of the
stopped
street.
in the lane.
They
Yes.
just stop in the middle of the street, let people on.
Yes.
In a similar vein, my dad got mad a while back. I was riding with him, and we was going down a narrow 2-lane road here in my town, and it's kind of in the middle of town. It's a residential area of town, anyway. I guess you could say my town ain't that big, but anyway. And I think it was a FedEx or UPS truck. I can't remember which one it was now. Stops right in the middle of the lane because there's no place to park. There's no street parking on this street. It's just a small, thin 2-lane street. Stops, flips his flashers on, gets out, grabs a big, load of packages out, and starts running them to house. And my dad just blows up immediately. I wish they'd find a better way to do that. They're just blocking the road. The rest of us have to wait. I mean, he went in full rant mode. And I said, well, Dad.
Your dad sounds like me.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, he was sort of full road rage mode. I mean,
a lot of 4-letter words coming out of his mouth.
Basically, yeah, there was some colorful language being used.
To show it on YouTube, you'd have to bleep the whole thing out.
Yeah. So anyway, he's going through this rant. I let him go for a minute. I said, well, Dad, you got to think, where is he going to park? These drivers are only allowed so far away from their trucks. They're not allowed to just park down the road and then walk a city block away. That's not allowed. And I said, so he don't have any other choice. So what would be your solution to fix this problem? And he just sat there and looked at me like, you just need to keep your mouth shut. And I said, well, you can't park on the side of the road. There's no parking lots around. He's only allowed so far away from his truck. So what's your solution to the problem? Instead of griping and screaming about it, what's your solution to the problem?
I have a solution.
I'm sure with all the millions of dollars these companies have, they can come up with something better than that. I thought, well,
Amazon's trialing drones.
Does that bit of the neighborhood have sidewalks?
Well, yeah, you got sidewalks and front yards, yeah.
Okay, so next to the curb, is there like a little grassy bit? Is there like a little strip of grass?
No, it's just sidewalk into the front yard. Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. I was gonna say if there's a little strip of grass, you could like kind of pull half his truck up onto that.
Well,
and have
see,
the
then
other half
what
in
you
the
get
street, kind of
into
have
would
like
be
that.
something. Yeah, but see, what you would get into would be with people like my neighbor next door, who just had a brand new sidewalk poured. And if you start tearing up people's curbs on their sidewalks, and then they got to tear their whole sidewalk out to replace their curb, that ain't gonna last long. And when you're pulling a heavy truck that's probably 10,000 pounds plus, 10 to 15,000 pounds, that's going to start doing damage to sidewalks.
That's a good point.
Are responsible of the homeowner. So as a homeowner, you're going to be replacing your sidewalk because the people across the street had to get their Amazon packages, and the Amazon van pulled up onto your sidewalk to get out of the street so cars could go by. That ain't gonna fly.
Here's another question. How come, because it's a 2-lane street, how come your dad couldn't have just made sure there was no one coming from the other lane and then just gone around him in the other lane?
It's on a double yellow line, so if you go around, you could have a chance of being pulled over.
Oh.
And be fined for passing on a double yellow line.
Well, just check to make sure that there's no policeman and then just give it the beans.
So it's only illegal if you get caught kind of mentality.
Yeah.
That's my mentality. You can speed, just don't do it in front of a policeman.
Right.
Layla wouldn't last 5 minutes in the UK because she wouldn't see the speed cameras. Go down she'd just be bombing it down the M1 at 140. Every single camera just flashing.
Beep, beep.
Yeah.
And then I go home and I see a bill for 120 pounds,
120,000 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah. So just make sure you have your speed or radar detector and your laser detector and all the detectors in your dash lined up.
Well, it might just be easier just to get a revolving number plate.
There we go. That's it.
Well, you get that sticky film you put on your license plate so it blurs it to cameras.
Oh the tinted film.
Testing crap. Yeah.
Or just don't put a front.
I don't know how that's legal. I still don't understand how that tinted film is legal.
Because in the UK, do you have? Is it by law? Do you have to have a front license plate?
Yes.
Okay.
Like Colorado. God dang it.
Same thing in Texas. But sometimes people get away with not doing that if if they just don't get pulled over by a policeman. You know, so if you're just driving about and then the policeman like just doesn't see that you don't have a front license plate on, then you,
Or they're probably. I'm guessing the police think you might be out of state.
yeah. Or they until they see the back plate and it says Texas, but yeah.
There was a thing in London where you can get number plates made by any vendor who's licensed by DVLA, and there were vendors that didn't check for ownership of the car when you made the number plate. So people would go and pick a similar model, go down the street, find the same car owned by someone else or similar enough, go down the number plate, get their plates made, and then break as many laws as they want behind the wheel, and it gets fined the other person.
Oh,
That's
wow.
you know what
Now,
that's
how is
like.
that allowed?
That's
How
like
is that allowed?
That's like
I don't think it's allowed anymore. But...
That's like that story on Top Gear where Grand Tour where the guy went up to the guy in the van, the speed camera van, undid the number plate, put it on his car, and then went past it 100 miles an hour. That's what that's like.
Yeah.
Yeah. We last year or so, Ohio done away with the front license plate law, so we don't need them on the front anymore. We just have to have the back ones, and that is so much better because there is nothing tackier on the nice front end of a car than a big old plate splattered on the front.
I will
Especially
say,
on the new BMW 4 Series, because you got like the two grills like that, and then the number plate is going across. It's completely messed up.
I will
think
say an Audi R8 is ruined by a front license plate.
Even my mom's A6 looks tacky with a license plate on the front. It's like, come on, man! Like you have to have a front one. You can't just wait for me to go by and then get the back one. You gotta be that lazy.
Dare I say a new C8 Corvette, because you got that nice point that the front end comes into, and then you got this big rectangle of a license plate right in the front.
you got the number plate just like dangling down from the little front.
Yes. Aerodynamics be damned.
Yeah, it's
Cooling.
And I remember, what was it,
not for cooling, exactly, Cody.
This is the C6 or the C5 Corvette that had more of the catfish kind of grill.
I think that was a C5, yeah.
C5, okay.
I'm pretty sure.
And then they put the license plate there. So now you look like you got a catfish mouth with buck teeth hanging out of it. It was horrible.
Oh, I have a model, I think, of exactly the car you're thinking of. It does look a bit odd. I'm used to front number plates. I'm 100% used to them, and I think some cars look odd without them.
Yeah. I just think there was some cars that they had the gaping grill, and when they put the license plate in, if you guys ever watched, I don't know, you guys probably never did, Ren and Stimpy. And there's an old cartoon called Ren and Stimpy, and it was this hilarious, this chihuahua and this anyway. And he got this tooth, and it's this big tooth. He's so proud of his big tooth, and he'd open it up, and there's just this one big tooth in his mouth. And that's all I can think of. So for the old people out there watching this who remember Ren and Stimpy, you'll get that joke. And that's what some of them cars reminded.
I was watching Only Fools and Horses yesterday. And they actually drove around that Reliant three-wheeled van.
And they didn't fall over like Joey did?
I don't. Well, in the episode I watched, they didn't. They were blowing smoke. The car was blowing smoke the whole time it was driving on screen.
Oh, wow.
Genuinely bellowing smoke.
Well,
Are you sure it wasn't impersonating Snoop Dogg?